And now my next guest, we usually get him on to discuss the BBC's latest assaults on the truth, its weird version of impartial reporting, particularly in the Middle East, which it doesn't actually do at all. There's nothing impartial about its reporting of the Middle East. It's extremely biased. But we thought we'd get him on tonight, just in his role as a journalist, and a very good one at that. He is former BBC man Robin Aitkin. Hello, Robin.
Hi, Kevin. How are you doing?
Thank you for joining us. I want to talk to you about Freebie Gate and, in your experience as a journalist, what you think that perhaps the Prime Minister ought to think about doing to try and stop this narrative, because he cannot seem to stop it at all. The Sue Gray situation has not helped. He had to fire her over the weekend, his own Chief of Staff, so that's not a good moment. But the sort of Freebie Gate updates include the fact that a series of brand new MPs, it turns out, have already accepted these fabulous trips to India and Chicago, these strange fact-finding trips. Whereas one of them was to go to Chicago to find out about migration and other changes in the world, all that, you know. They've always done this, these MPs. They go on these free holidays and call them fact-finding missions. So we've got that. Plus, it's turned out that the Premier League alone have given Keir Starmer and 9 of his cabinet cronies more than £100,000 worth of football tickets. And this is not illegal, but it's an interesting footnote that the Deputy Prime Minister, Angela Rayner, has bought her socialist boyfriend a £3,500 made-to-measure suit from a royal tailor. So that's more in the line of how quickly they forget their roots. Nothing illegal about that, of course. But this narrative, Freebie Gate, troughs in the snout. Keir Starmer last week announcing, I'm going to give back £6,000 worth of the freebies I've already accepted. That amounts to about a 20th of the total amount of freebies that he's announced. So he said, I'm going to give back a 20th. So what he's saying is, what I've been doing is wrong, but sort of not really that wrong. It's just a bit wrong. I mean, this is a PR catastrophe. I don't know what advice this guy's getting, but it's bad. What would you do if you were hired as the Chief of Staff at Downing Street, and until recently that job was going? What would you advise Starmer to do to try to nip this scourge in the bud?
Well, the trouble is, Kevin, that it hasn't been nipped in the bud, has it? Yeah. I mean, the thing you point to, the fact that he decided to pay back 6,000 quid worth of these freebies, I think is an inexplicable misstep to me, because what that does, on the one hand, it concedes the point that there is something, if not illegal, slightly unsavory about accepting all these free gifts. So he says, right, I'll pay back this amount. But what about all the other free gifts that he had, which, as you say, amount to far of the bulk of what it is that he's been given? So the question really is, how can this now be recovered by Number 10? Now, I noticed today that various of Starmer's media allies, Robert Peston, for instance, on ITN, who was tweeting that getting rid of Sue Gray showed how ruthless Keir Starmer was, and how he was determined now to get a grip of the Number 10 operation. But I think that's all very well and good, but that is putting the flimsiest of gloss on what has been really a pretty catastrophic performance so far. And I have a good friend who's a Labour man to his core, and he's been a Labour man all his life. And we were discussing this very question just today. And I think what it comes down to is that Starmer has a very undeveloped or very poor political sense. I mean, he's clearly a clever man. He's clearly somebody who has ideas about what is wrong with the country. But he has no political cunning. If you think back, Kevin, to the prime ministers in our lifetimes who have done really well and who have been seen as politically having a sure touch. Think of Blair. Now, Blair, he did many things which I disagreed with, but he was so sure-footed when it came to political manoeuvring. He was somebody who knew how to stroke public opinion. Do you remember, the day that Princess Diana died? And Blair comes out.
The people's princess.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Now, I think Alistair Campbell's laid claim to that little gem, hasn't he? Or,
what was old Blair's classic moment? Was it the Northern Ireland Agreement? He said, "Now is not the time for sound bites, but I feel the hand of history on my shoulder." That is a sound bite, Tony.
Exactly.
But he was a great operator. I agree with you.
Exactly. He's an operator. And, all the prime ministers who have succeeded, and I would include in this, so I would say Boris had it initially till he went off the rails. Cameron had it to a certain extent. He was somebody who people warmed to, and he was very suave, very sure-footed, Cameron. And then we've had a succession of other prime ministers who have lacked that touch. So Sunak had it not at all. Truss was a disaster. Theresa May, she was as flat-footed as a penguin. I mean, she was utterly hopeless, wasn't she?
Yes.
In terms of her political grasp. And what I think is this. What I think, Kevin, is that Starmer has missing from his makeup this crucial ingredient, which is critical for any prime minister, which is the ability to spot political difficulties coming round the corner and to act quickly. Mm-hmm. And what they're now in the situation of doing is trying to recover a situation where there have been a litany, a series of mistakes. I just don't get it. These people spend all their lives trying to climb the greasy ladder. The one thing you would expect them to be quite good at is politics. And,
kind of their job, isn't it?
Well, it kind of is, isn't it? I mean, if you had asked, if someone in number 10 had asked you or me 2 months ago, when this Freebie gate started to gather momentum, this is not, and we're not political geniuses, but I would have said, cut this off at the knee as quickly as possible. Make a clean breast of it, say, right, well, I can see in retrospect, I got some of these things wrong. I'm very sorry. But, I think what the problem is, I think there's another problem here. And it comes down to the fact that Starmer is a lawyer. And so he is looking at things and he's saying, well, this is all perfectly legal. But you know what, Keir? It's not a question of what is legal. It's a question of how it looks. How do people take these things? How does the guy sitting, in an ordinary job, in an ordinary house, in an ordinary town, when he sees you stuffing your pockets with whatever good things come your way, that is not the look of a Labour man.
Robert, this is what I think. I think you're right about, Joe Soap in the average rural town is going to say, I have to save up when I have to buy a suit. Why is this multi-millionaire Prime Minister taking free suits from another multi-millionaire? Money is a very powerful element in the political narrative, and if people sense that money is being misappropriated, mishandled, they're going to get very worked up. And I'm going to have to finish this on my point, but what I think is that Starmer doesn't realise the extent to which he's going to have to cut down the world of taking freebies. He's only just started. The public will demand a lot more. He thinks, as you say, that he can go, it's within the laws, we didn't break the rules. No, well, what the public are saying, we'll change the damn rules then, because this is wrong. That's where he doesn't realise that he has only just begun the process of cutting off the freebies. It's no good saying, I won't take any more free clothes. You're going to have to include football tickets. You're going to have to include Taylor Swift tickets and so on and so forth. So I think he's going to have to do a lot more talking to get himself out of this situation. I wish we could talk for longer, Robin, but I've got to get on. Always a pleasure, mate. Thank you very much. Robin Aitkin, excellent journalist from the BBC, former BBC. Wrote a book called Can We Trust the BBC Every Single Time? I taunt him with the fact that book should be one word: no.